No more survivors. Rescue teams battling to save victims of one of India's worst ever train disasters say there are hundreds dead and no one left to save. Also tonight, animal rights protesters target the Derby in Epsom, resulting in dozens of arrests.
All we wanted to do was to maybe show the media that we are people who stand up for these horses.
That's good to one!
And City break an FA Cup final record and keep their hopes of an historic treble alive.
2 out of 3, that's the main thing, innit? Bigger games next week against bigger opposition.
This is ITV News with Lucy Watson.
Good evening. The search for survivors after India's worst train disaster this century has been called off, according to local media. Nearly 300 people were killed and more than 800 injured after 2 packed passenger trains crashed in the east of the country yesterday. More than 3,000 people were on board the 2 trains. Signalling error and a damaged track are 2 possible causes being investigated as the country's Prime Minister visited the site today. Narendra Modi has vowed that anyone found responsible will be punished stringently. Rachel Younger has the latest.
It is a sight so shocking that even the soldiers sent to help are struggling to take it in. The wreckage of 2 packed express trains lying smashed and scattered. After a collision so catastrophic, it's hard to imagine how anyone escaped unscathed. Rescuers have spent hours trying to reach the living and recover the dead. From carriages flipped over to the skies and crushed one beneath the other. The chaos on board as the disaster unfolded, described by one passenger who made it out.
As I stepped out of the toilet, suddenly the train tilted. I lost my balance. People started falling on each other and I was shocked and could not understand what happened.
The few carriages that escaped intact tell part of the story. Passengers preparing for the 20 hours still ahead of them by unpacking food and kicking off shoes when the Coromandel Express to Chennai suddenly derailed. Moments later, it was hit by the Howrah Express travelling in the opposite direction. People running from nearby villages to join a frantic rescue attempt overnight. Those pulled from the wreckage, among over 850 people injured in the crash.
I'm deeply distressed by this extremely tragic train accident. I have to thank the local people, the local teams and others who have worked overnight to save people from the wreckage.
The region's hospitals are now so full that some of the injured wait in hallways. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi today visiting survivors, promising a full investigation. But the modernisation of India's huge railway network has long been promised. It will come too late for the hundreds of dead whose possessions still litter the tracks. Rachel Younger, ITV News.
More than 24 animal rights protesters have been arrested on suspicion of trying to disrupt the Derby at Epsom today. Most of those detained got nowhere near the course and were intercepted ahead of time based on intelligence. But one activist did make it onto the track before being tackled and dragged off, just seconds before the horses reached him. Sangeeta Lal was there.
It was their aim to cause disruption, but this was never part of the plan. Just after the race had started, with horses less than a minute away, officers cleared the track just in time. Other protesters had tried before the race to stop it going ahead or delay the start time. One thing they said they wouldn't do, though, was go onto the track during the race.
All we wanted to do was to maybe show the media that we are people who stand up for these horses.
Potentially putting yourself, the animal and police officers at risk.
We weren't going to go on the racetrack while there were horses there.
What were you planning?
To disrupt the race before it started.
Something police were aware of, on high alert for any disruption. For some who saw the protesters, it was an unwanted distraction during their day at the races.
The danger of him getting hurt, the jockeys, the horses, it just ruins it for everybody. I know that's their intention, but it's just so dangerous.
Did you see the protester? You saw him? It was awful.
Yeah, I don't think they should be here. I think it's doing more harm than good to the horses, to be honest.
The track has spent an extra £150,000 on security measures this year, something so many people here have told me they have noticed, not only with how they've been able to enjoy their day, but knowing there could be protesters among the crowd who have vowed to disrupt the race.
We had a High Court injunction in place against anyone who disrupts any part of the race or the running of the day, or anyone who attempts to get on the course before or during the race. Everyone obviously saw that happened during the live coverage, so we will now be enforcing that injunction against the individual concerned.
Despite attempts to disrupt the race, it went on, with Auguste Rodin, ridden by Ryan Moore, winning the Derby. It meant trainer Aidan O'Brien extended his record to 9 wins.
Sangeeta Lal, ITV News.
There are reports tonight that the government is preparing to announce a £1 billion plan to fill vacancies in the NHS in England. The proposal, which has not yet been signed off, apparently plans to train thousands more doctors, nurses, midwives, GPs and dentists. Well, our political correspondent Tom Sheldrick is with me now. Tom, an idea like this has been long overdue, hasn't it?
Yes, a long-term plan for the NHS workforce has long been promised, and it's much anticipated for a number of reasons. There are more than 100,000 staff vacancies in the NHS in England. There are concerns about how many NHS workers come from overseas when net migration is at record levels. And another of the Prime Minister's key pledges is cutting waiting lists. So now the Sunday Times are reporting that the government is looking at doubling medical school places for doctors over the next 6 years and training 24,000 nurses and midwives by the end of the decade, as well as several thousand new GPs and dentists.
So this can only be a good thing, but what has the reaction been tonight?
Well, Labour have seized upon suggestions that the Treasury are not willing to commit to all of this, funding all of this, but only certain elements of the plan. They claim tonight that Rishi Sunak still refuses to fund the doctors and nurses the NHS needs. Well, the government are just saying that their workforce plan will be brought forward shortly and they won't comment on speculation. But a source from the government has told me that no specific numbers or timeframes for recruitment have been decided on yet. Finally, I think this will be interesting to see how this all goes down with current NHS workers and their unions. Some, like junior doctors, are still, of course, in disputes with the government. They've claimed the NHS is understaffed, but they also are calling on funding to be committed to lift their wages.
We shall see. Thank you very much, Tom. 3 Israeli soldiers have been killed by an Egyptian policeman who crossed the border into Israel. Egypt says the policeman was chasing drug smugglers across the border, but Israel's defence forces say he targeted 3 soldiers before being killed himself in a shootout. Both countries have stressed their cooperation in investigating the incident. Recep Tayyip Erdogan has been sworn in as Turkey's president for an unprecedented 3rd time. Last weekend, the 69-year-old won another 5-year term, making him the longest-serving leader in Turkey's history. And King Charles is on holiday in Romania tonight as his first overseas trip since the coronation. Today, the King attended a country feast with residents in Transylvania, where he has a holiday home. Manchester City made history today with the fastest FA Cup final goal ever, scoring in the 13th second at Wembley. City then went on to beat Manchester United 2-1 to keep their hopes of a famous treble alive. Chris Scudder was watching.
Never before had Manchester's 2 giants contested the cup final, and no rail strike would stop the old rivals battling their way south. But no one could have predicted just how quickly the fireworks of the big derby would ignite. Straight from kick-off, an extraordinary moment. After 100 years of Golden Cup final moments, within 13 seconds, City scored.
That's Gundogan!
The fastest goal in FA Cup final history. Gundogan had bent it like you-know-who, and Beckham, the old United golden boy, was devastated. Then high drama, unintentional handball by Jack Grealish. Penalty to United.
It's 1-1.
Fernandes made it 1-1.
Manchester United.
But United didn't heed the warning from Gundogan, and it was fatal.
And he's done it again.
It was nothing like as clean a strike as the Germans' first-minute goal, but David De Gea couldn't keep it out. Some might say the United keeper should have done much better. There was a frantic finish when United almost scored an equaliser, but City kept them out. And that was that, the league and cup double complete, set up by Gundogan's record strike.
The ball landed perfectly for me, and I hit it quite well, and obviously that was an amazing feeling.
2 out of 3, that's the main thing, innit? Bigger games next week against bigger opposition.
Nerve-wracking.
It was
awesome,
phenomenal.
fantastic. We're here from Houston, Texas.
Yes, we came all the way from the US to enjoy this, and it had us on our feet.
But City are not done yet. What they really want now is the Champions League. Beat Inter Milan in Istanbul next Saturday, and the treble, only ever done before by United, will be theirs. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
On to the next. Meanwhile, in Scotland, Celtic are celebrating completing their domestic treble. They beat Inverness Caledonian Thistle 3-1 in the Scottish Cup final at Hampden Park after their successes in the Premiership and League Cup. It's the 5th time in 7 seasons Celtic have completed a clean sweep. Finally, someone in the UK is more than £100 million richer tonight. One lucky ticket holder has scooped this week's Euromillions jackpot, worth almost £112 million. The prize will make them richer than celebrities like Harry Kane and Daniel Radcliffe. But it doesn't beat last year's jackpot, a record of £195 million. Sadly, it wasn't me. That is it from the weekend team for now. The weather forecast is next. Thank you for watching. Good night. Bye-bye.
First thing today will be lovely and warm, and by breakfast time it could be on the sunny side. Heinz tomato ketchup, no added sugar and salt, sponsors ITV National Weather.
Hello there, good evening to you. The fine weather we're enjoying at the moment is here to stay with high pressure in charge. It's looking sunny for most over the coming few days and feeling warm in that sunshine as well. As we head through tonight, we hold on to largely clear skies, although low cloud coming in off the North Sea once again. Temperatures will be on the cool side, cold enough I think tonight, particularly across rural spots, to see a touch of frost through northern parts of England and Scotland. So a cool start to Sunday morning, but like today, any low cloud will burn back very quickly. Another fine and sunny day to come, but worth mentioning that UV levels will be high. Our temperatures will rise in that sunshine. We're looking at highs of around 21 to 23 degrees Celsius, that's 73 in Fahrenheit. And here's confirmation of a lovely week ahead. Dry, sunny spells and warm temperatures too. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Heinz tomato ketchup, no added sugar and salt, sponsors ITV National Weather.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV London Weekend Weather.
Hello there.
Very good evening to you. Today, clear skies across the capital have allowed temperatures to rise into the low to mid-20s, and it's felt rather warm, quite pleasant out there as well. The wind's still coming in from the northeast, and that's because we've got this area of high pressure which remains in control of the weather for the remainder of the weekend and even into next week too, giving us very similar conditions, very little amounts of rainfall, if anything at all, with mostly clear skies overhead. Now, as we continue that story through this evening and overnight, we've got the clear skies with us. That means perfect weather to see tonight's full moon, known as the Strawberry Moon. There will be a little low cloud just creeping into the northwestern home counties, but otherwise we start our day on Sunday morning, temperatures in the range of 9 to 10 degrees Celsius. A fairly mild start for Sunday. Again, a lot of sunshine around. There'll be some fair weather cloud just floating around here and there, but otherwise a fine day, staying dry, always a little cooler across eastern parts of the capital, where here we've got that breeze, but otherwise temperatures in the range of 18 to 22, maybe 23 degrees Celsius. That's 73 in Fahrenheit. Don't forget that our UV levels are very high as we go through tomorrow, and that story will continue into the new working week as well. Feeling warm in any sunshine. Good night.
Vaillant sponsors ITV London Weekend Weather.